Hi everyone, I'm Christine Dunbar from Speech Modification question and answer class, where you can ask any questions about the American accent, about speech modification and our resources, about the 5x5 live challenge if you've been taking part in that. Today we're going to be talking about an accent training technique called thinking in English. We'll talk about how you can use this simple technique to improve your American accent a little bit every day, and I'll go through some of the information about that. I also wanted to let you know, if you haven't already become part of our 5x5 challenge, I invite you to do so. We're doing 5 live videos 5 times a week for 5 weeks. And you can subscribe to the channel, get notified when I'm live, and you can also get those lessons emailed right to you. So there's a link for signing up for that. I'll post that a little later in the broadcast. And the advantage there is that it doesn't take a long time, and you don't have to sit down for an hour and work on your speech to make a change, but you do have to do practice in order to implement the smart technology, the smart technique for your accent. And so the 5x5 challenge is designed just for that, to give you something quick to do that's going to make a change in your speech, that's going to be efficient and effective. And the videos have been taking part in my online courses, and some of you also have worked with me one-on-one, and you still need a little bit of help and reminder, that little nudge to actually do the practice that's going to give you the progress that you want to see. So I'm here to help you with that, and I hope you'll take part with the 5x5 challenge. And here's the link to sign up for the emails if you want. I'll put those in the chat. Please feel free to ask your questions today. You put those in the chat and I will respond to the questions, and we'll talk about whatever topics are useful for you. I'll also be giving you a quick tip you can use right away. So let's talk about thinking in English. How can simply thinking in English help me with my accent? Seems like maybe it would be unrelated. Here's the thing. When we're talking, we have a very complex series of motor habits that we use in order to speak. So if you think about what it takes to talk, you have to think of what you want to say. You have to know the vocabulary, the grammar, you have to formulate the sentence, and then you have to execute extremely complex motor movements in order to do speech. So when I'm talking, I can't be thinking about where's my tongue, how am I saying this particular vowel. It's extremely difficult to have awareness of pronunciation while we're speaking. Now, my SMART technique will teach you how to build that awareness for sounds and patterns, how to make those changes. But one of the things that you can do that's a more global approach for your accent is to reduce the load on your brain when you're speaking. So if I am someone who speaks English as a second language, perhaps in my brain, I'm actually still thinking in my original language, and then I'm adding the piece of translating into English, and then all of those other steps I talked about, the vocabulary, the grammar, the motor processing. So one of the things that I can do to speed up and be more efficient with that speech process is to mentally rehearse in English. And what does this mean? Basically, what you want to try to do is some of the time when you're thinking, doesn't have to be all the time, it couldn't be all the time, it'd be inefficient and exhausting for your thinking, but efficient for your American accent training, if you can spend some time thinking in full sentences in English. So what does that mean? Many of you probably are conceptual thinkers. That means that most of the time in your brain, when you're thinking about something, you have a tendency to more like talk to yourself in your head, in sentences, maybe in English, maybe in your native language. What I'm going to suggest is that for the purposes of improving your accent, you try to spend some time thinking in your head in English sentences. I did just post a video about this yesterday that kind of walks you through some of the steps, but let's do a little bit of it here together. So what you're going to do is maybe you might start by something fairly simple, just labeling in your mind what you're seeing or what you're doing. So I could do it right here in my office, and I could say, I'm broadcasting live. I can look out the window. I can see the floor. I can see the ceiling. I can see the walls, etc. Now I'm saying that out loud, but I could, without talking, say those full sentences in my head. It wouldn't be as efficient as looking around and just noticing and thinking those things, but putting together the words, putting together the vocabulary, that's rehearsing and that's helping me so that when I go to do it, when I actually want to speak, I've had more rehearsal in English with those other elements of speech. More complex, I can narrate to myself what I'm doing. So if I were driving somewhere, I could think to myself, I'm driving, I'm looking at these other cars, I'm slowing down, I'm braking, I'm putting on my turn signal, I'm making a right turn. So whatever you might be doing, you can dictate and narrate what you're doing in your head. Again, thinking in English helps you with that sentence building, those other elements of speech and language. And then, let's see, looks like my link for the 5x5 challenge didn't go through. Let me try sending that one more time. And if it doesn't go through, you can get those links below after the class is finished. Okay, so that's number one. You're going to be more efficient when you're speaking if you've had more time rehearsing in English in your thoughts. But secondly, your brain knows more about the American accent than you realize it does. So we have, for those of you who have been paying attention, speaking in English, listening to English, especially those of you here in the United States or in other English-speaking countries, you're surrounded by the American accent, you're surrounded by English all of the time, and your brain is constantly making adjustments in its ability to listen, its ability to hear the sound system for English, and its ability to use it. But so as you are surrounded by using American English for longer and longer, there will be changes in your accent, even if you don't do anything consciously to work at it. But there are places where it doesn't change automatically, but your brain is hearing and noticing these differences. So when you're thinking in English, you can actually you can take advantage of this subconscious knowledge that you have. You can be thinking in American accent. Your brain is able to create that even if you're not physically able to do it yet. And that has a positive feedback loop of accessing those parts of your subconscious that you don't access consciously to make those changes in your accent. Sometimes way of speaking, it sounds a little odd to us. So we tend to shy away from it because it sounds fake or it sounds like doesn't sound quite right for the American accent. And I encourage you to do this in your brain and also try it out loud, that you can be speaking with kind of your fake American accent, the one you aren't really sure about, and you'll be increasing your ability to get that feedback loop from what you're hearing. So that was kind of a long-winded explanation, but that's the gist of thinking in English and why it's so advantageous for American accent training. So let's go to our quick tip for this topic. So to do thinking in English, start small. So like I said, start with labeling what you see or narrating what you're doing. You can also repeat what you hear on TV or on the radio, but in your head, in your thoughts. So that'll help you become more comfortable with thinking in English and thinking in the full sentences, and for imitating that American accent in your head. So maybe you're not going to sound exactly like the TV actor or the TV announcer, but you can do your own voice in the American accent in your head. I'd like to highlight a few resources for you. If you're here in the Seattle area, I have some free classes coming up on August the 8th at lunchtime and August the 15th in the evening. I'll be at WeWork Lincoln Square in Bellevue, giving you a free introductory class to American accent training, so I hope you can join me for either of those. You can check out my calendar of all my local events and classes on my website, speechmodification.com. I'll try again here to put the link in. Yeah, that one went through. Go ahead and click on that. I'll be updating that as I'm adding more classes. And I hope that you join the 5x5 live challenge and you can begin to get those emails sent to you, do that little bit of daily practice. And I'm also going to be teaching locally a couple of comprehensive courses in the fall, so I hope you can join me for one of those courses. And I'm excited to announce that I'm doing a giveaway for a free seat in one of my classes. So go to my website, speechmodification.com, and if you're here in the area and you think you might want to join that class, you can enter to win that free 6-hour or 9-hour class. Thanks so much for being here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, either about what we just talked about with thinking in English, or any of the topics we've talked about in 5x5 this week, or anything else that you'd like to know. I'll talk for a few more minutes in case there's questions that haven't come through. I also do have a free ebook that you can download. That's a great way to get started with the SMART technique for accent training. It has a lot of links to videos and practice materials that can get you started. So if you haven't downloaded that, I hope you will. I'll put the link for that in here as well. All of my online courses have a free trial, and so I hope you try some of those out if you haven't yet already. You can go to speechmodification.com and click on courses. Those are great for those of you who aren't here in the Seattle area, so you can't come to one of my in-person classes, or if you are someone who likes to work kind of on your own, at your own pace, those are great for that. So, okay, well, thanks for being here. It was great to see everyone today, and remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. Speechmodification.com.